Tonight on All In.
The Fox News decision desk is calling Arizona for Joe Biden.
The panic over getting it right.
Arizona, are you 100% sure of that call and when you made it, and why did you make it?
Absolutely.
How details showed how Fox reacted internally when their viewers didn't like the election results. Senator Chris Murphy says it's a seminal moment, and he joins me live tonight. Then,
this is the final battle. They know it. I know it. You know it. Everybody knows it. This is it.
the MAGA iron fist on full display as Trump's rivals flounder with his base. Plus,
when will you announce your re-election, sir?
When I announce it.
It may not be official, but it sure looks like Joe Biden is running. And as Republicans advance another state takeover in St. Louis, the mayor, Tashara Jones, joins me tonight when All In starts right now. Good evening. I'm Jason Johnson in for Chris Hayes. Tonight we have damaging new revelations in the story of how Fox News deliberately lied to its viewers in the wake of the 2020 election. Over the weekend, the New York Times published this report detailing the, quote, panic at Fox in the days after Joe Biden won the election, and crucially, after Fox was the first network to call the swing state of Arizona for Biden. According to the Times, top executives and hosts joined a meeting on November 16, 2020, quote, to figure out how they had messed up. Not because they'd gotten the key call wrong, but because they'd gotten it right. And they had gotten it right before anybody else. Their goal for that meeting was to determine how to keep from angering the network's conservative audience again by calling an election for a Democrat before the competition. The Times reports that they discussed several ways they might do that, including abandoning the sophisticated new election projecting system in which Fox had invested millions of dollars, or basing calls not solely on numbers, but on how viewers might react, or even delaying making calls, even if they were right, to keep the audience in suspense and boost viewership. Now, this all comes in the wake of explosive details we've been learning from Dominion Voting Systems' defamation lawsuit against Fox News. They have revealed that Fox knew the lies they spread about the election. They were, quote, really crazy stuff, in the words of News Corporation Chairman Rupert Murdoch. And yet, Fox chose to air them anyway to keep their viewers and shareholders happy. The Dominion filings have also proven, once and for all, in case there was any doubt, that Fox is a propaganda arm of the Republican Party. Rupert Murdoch even tried to directly aid the Trump campaign, giving Trump's son-in-law and senior advisor Jared Kushner confidential information about Biden's ads, along with debate strategy. And with Republicans now back in power in the House of Representatives, the collaboration is going both ways. For example, last month, Speaker Kevin McCarthy provided Fox host Tucker Carlson with exclusive access to 41,000 hours of Capitol surveillance footage from January 6th. And as outrage about these revelations grows, Democrats are speaking out and calling for action. Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer took to the floor to demand that Fox apologize on the air.
They need to stop giving a platform to dangerous and entirely unfounded conspiracy theories that eat at the wellspring of our democracy. And they need to admit on the air that they were wrong to engage in such negligent and destructive behavior.
And Senator Chris Murphy of Connecticut told the Washington Post, quote, this is a seminal moment in the history of mass media, and we need to treat it that way. Joining me now is Senator Chris Murphy, Democrat of Connecticut. Senator Chris Murphy, thank you so much for joining me tonight. I will start with this. This is how this looks to me. 41,000 hours of footage from an attempted coup is federal evidence. If I have local evidence from my local police department, heck, my neighborhood watch, I'm not giving it to a local blogger. So how on earth is Kevin McCarthy trying to justify to fellow members of Congress giving 41,000 hours of federal investigative evidence and material to Fox News? Explain this to me like I'm 7, because I don't know what he could be saying to his colleagues to make this make sense.
Well, obviously, I can't explain this on any rational terms.
we are very concerned about this footage being turned over to Fox News, in part because it may compromise the safety of our building. I mean, what's next? Is the Speaker of the House going to turn over the daily schedules of the Capitol Police? Are they going to give them the codes to the locked doors? There's a point at which you're really putting in jeopardy the safety of the people who work every single day in the Capitol, beyond the threats that have already been made to apparent and real. I mean, listen, there's a, I'll scratch your back, you scratch mine relationship between Republicans in Congress and Fox News. You clearly saw how scared Fox News executives were of losing Trump's base. They knew that that's how their bread was buttered. And Republicans in the House and the Senate know that, the only way for them to effectively get their message out is to keep Fox News happy with them. And so that symbiotic relationship is really the story, one of the central stories of the political right now. And you now see with these revelations how damaging that is to the core of democracy.
Senator Murphy, I want to be brass tacks here. What can be done about this? Because as you've pointed out, this is a national security risk. And the way I look at it, you have Fox News actively lied about the election in order to foment an insurrection that basically 99% of Republicans actually agree with. So this seems like a continuation of the coup. Is there anything that Congress can do? Are there lawsuits that Congress can sort of engage against Fox News? Are there investigations that could go into Fox News to keep them from getting any sort of injunction? I'm not a lawyer here, but help me out, because it seems like our federal government should be able to step in when evidence is being handed to people who are conspirators with trying to overthrow the government.
Well, I mean, certainly if there's evidence that, Fox News is engaged in a conspiracy to overthrow the government, that's relevant to the United States Congress. I'm not sure that there are criminal charges at hand here. But, clearly we need to spend more time talking about this. I mentioned that this is a seminal moment. I'm sure there are moments in the past in which news networks and outlets deliberately lied to their viewers in order to boost ratings. Frankly, it probably happens every day somewhere in the media ecosystem. But this is the most significant example ever that has been uncovered of a major news operation knowingly and deliberately lying to its viewers simply in order to pad its profits. They knew it wasn't true that Donald Trump had the election stolen from them, but because they were worried that Trump would bring his base to Newsmax or OAN, one of these Fox News competitors, they proffered the lie day after day to keep the ratings machine going. And so I think this is an eye-opener for the American public. Frankly think we need to have a broader conversation about the implications of so much of our media becoming for-profit, frankly, on the left and the right. Now, the left isn't deliberately lying to its viewers, but the right is today, and it is, I think, a consequence of maybe at the foundation, the decision we've made to just turn our news media operations into a full for-profit exercise.
I think that's a good point. And I want to make it clear, and I'm glad you said this, Senator, these aren't equivalent. There's a difference between, a network having disagreement on a particular issue and expressing, hey, we think this or that about this, as opposed to lying. Russell Brand, I'm sorry, you were wrong. It's not the same thing with MSNBC and Fox. But I think your point about media is also really key here. How can members of Congress, with who they speak to or how they interact with members of the press, how can you all sort of engage the networks that you can speak to and sort of rein some of this in? We may not be able to do anything about Fox, but there are obviously other news outlets there that may see the Fox model and be tempted to go that route. What can you all do to possibly influence that?
Yeah, listen, I think this is fraught with peril. I mean, I just want to be honest with you. I think it is difficult for Congress to try to step in through policy and micromanage journalism. And secondly, I also think it's hard to, ask progressives or Democrats to not go on conservative media, because that frankly just continues to sort of bifurcate the conversations that are happening in this country. I don't make a habit of going on Fox News, but I do occasionally, because there are some times where I want to convey an audience to their viewers, and their viewership is large. So I haven't taken the tact of, completely boycotting Fox News. Maybe I'd reconsider that. And I also think it's difficult for Congress to, take up legislation or policy that dictates who can be on the air and who can't. That is, probably in the end fraught with a little bit, too much danger.
Senator Chris Murphy, thank you so much for starting us off on All In. I'm joined now by Angelo Carusone, President and CEO of Media Matters. Angelo, thank you so much for joining me today. Look, this sort of stuff infuriates me. It infuriates me. And I have to say, as an organization that watches the media, give us some historical context here. We're not talking about YouTubers. We're not talking about TikTok. We're not talking about Instagram. Can you think of another instance in the last 15 or 20 years where there has been such obvious lying, not by a particular anchor, not by a particular show, but a conspiracy by an entire network to lie and knowingly lie about an issue that affected the public? Can you think of any other examples in the last 15, 20 years?
I'm sure that happens all the time at Fox News day to day. But to your discussion earlier, there hasn't really been clear-cut evidence of that, right? I mean, there was about 12 years ago, there was a series of leaked internal communications from Fox News that we were able to acquire that actually showed Fox executives telling producers to lie about the temperature record, because if they actually told people what the temperature record was, it suggested that global warming was real, and that their audience didn't want to hear that. But that was only 3 emails. I mean, and it was explosive back then, but what we didn't see was 3 months of internal communications where they were saying that all those things, and then also saying, oh, we know that none of these things we're saying is true, but we're doing it not just for profit, but also power. And I think that part has been left out of this. And I think that's partly what makes it so disturbing, but it hasn't really been named yet in all of this discussion, is that the scary thing is this isn't just about money for Fox News. They're also doing it for power that they then use and operationalize to drive change, not just in policy, but in our culture and in our country.
Angela, with that in mind, especially when we talk about our country, let's talk a little bit about the audience, right? Because there seems to be this sort of wag the dog element, right? Fox claims in these internal memos and these internal texts, hey, we're afraid of our audience here. But the fact that the audience seems to want to be lied to, I think to myself, if we had a bunch of internal records exposed that the NFL fixed the Super Bowl, right? Hey, we don't want the Eagles to win. How do we make sure that Patrick Mahomes gets it? People would be furious. They would be boycotting the NFL. There would be calls for Congress. Why are Fox audiences not upset about the fact that they have been lied to and led into a failed insurrection?
Well, a big part of that is that the ends justify the means. They sort of know what the goal is. And so sometimes you have to lie and fib, and that's why the power part of this conversation is very important. Why their audience doesn't backlash against them when they're being derided, or that the things are being, that their hosts are admitting that they're lies, is because they all know that the lies are done to serve a larger objective. Fox News lied not just to, appease its audience, but because they were helping build the scaffolding for January 6th, for an attack on our democracy. They all understood that. That was a part of it. That's why their audience was backlashing, because they expected Fox News to push the things that were otherwise percolating in the fringes that hadn't been sort of laundered through these few gatekeepers. And that's why I think it matters who goes on and who validates Fox News. We're not having debates about why people aren't going on Alex Jones to reach different audiences, right? At some point, because of what has been exposed here, in such clear example, I think everyone needs to change their behavior around Fox, because they're no longer masquerading as a news operation. They're a destructive, dangerous political operation. And that's the part where I think we all have to act accordingly. Start treating it like InfoWars, and a lot less like we had been treating Fox News before we saw the recent revelations.
I've been saying the same thing about the Republican Party. They are no longer a party. They are a dime storefront for a terrorist organization called MAGA. Angelo Carusone, thank you so much for joining us this evening on All In.